The Art of Compromise Primaris Edition. This video does rely on the Patreon as a whole when it comes to creating the skin tone, hair color, the usage of microsol microset, the application of oil, and the final snow base at the end. What this video is intended to be is a workbook for anybody who wants to develop a very quick Blood Angel scheme. You will be able to paint this miniature in under 20 minutes. So let's get cracking, let's have a look at how we create this realistic, weathered, grimdark Blood Angel. Before we do anything else, the first thing that we do after the black undercoat is apply 2 thick layers of hairspray. This could be any hairspray. I would recommend the stronger bond the better, but 2 coats of strong hairspray, and that sets us up for the rest of the tutorial. First up, we take good old reliable deep red from scale 75 and we thin this down to a rough ratio of 1 portion paint to 1 portion thinner. We do want it quite thick, and this covers up over a black base coat. In this case I did use the Stynel Res black primer from Badger, but the scale 75 is equally as good. Vermilion from Vallejo is thinned down 1 portion paint to 1 portion thinner to build up our first volumetric highlight. The PSI is always set at 35 and I only rely on trigger control to give me my modulation. Now do make this layer quite broad because we do want to capture from the highlight down to the lower mid-tone. So we only want the lower mid-tone through to shadow really left with a dark or deep red. Make sure you get every little portion. Okay, orange from Chimera is thinned down, and this is thinned down much thinner than the previous. Blah, and I blat it all over my miniature. Don't be afraid when this happens. Don't freak out. Don't smash the miniature against the room, against the wall. Don't worry, all will be well. Take a brush and stipple. This layer now becomes a stipple layer. But orange from Chimera is thinned down 1 portion paint to 2 portions thinner. We do still want it quite thick, but we want it running out the airbrush nicely. The thinner I'm using is Life Color Thinner from Medea.com Art. And I use this for everything. Absolutely everything that I do. I find this ubiquitous. It interacts with Vallejo, Scale 75, Chimera, all as equally well as one another. If you do have difficulties with your airbrush, feel free to add a little bit of Flow Improver. And you can get this from the Winsor & Newton acrylic range. But a little bit goes a long way, and it does give your paint a slightly satin finish. But that can be corrected later on when we hit it with oils. Tricky bit coming up because we want to push the contrast even further, so we want to mix in a small amount of golden skin. In this case I am using the scale 75 paint, however golden flesh from Vallejo is equally as valid. We add a blob of this. I'm not exactly sure how to quantify this, but if we were to say Chimera, a rough ratio, we're looking at 70% Chimera, 30% golden flesh. And this is used to highlight the very tip-top volumes of the miniature. We are trying to express these shapes as much as possible. And if at this stage it looks slightly dusky, slightly pink, no need to worry because we will be adding a filter layer later on. We take our trusty sponge on a stick and we use the mixture that we have in our airbrush. I've tipped it out onto this palette, loaded up the sponge on the stick, and I'm going to apply this to any hard edge. So this goes on any areas that will pick up a lot of wear and tear, any battle damage, and I also concentrated on the highlights to give the impression that as light hits the object you can see more of the battle damage. You can just simply see more detail as it exists in the light. As it fades into shadow, well, the shadow covers all this stuff up. Again, if you are a little bit too aggressive at this stage, if it does look a little bit too pink for your eyes, don't worry, trust the process. because the filter layer will sort everything out. And the filter layer is a color that you apply across the entirety of the scheme, and it helps bind these very disparate tones together. That's why it's so important to push things at this stage, and don't be a nervous Nelly and wimp out, and don't push them to this stage. Remember, push it until it breaks, then take a step back. Over the highlight, I want to add my previous mixture. So this is Chimera 70%, 30% golden skin. And this overlaps the highlight and helps just smooth the transition ever so slightly. Some of these marks were a little bit too gregarious. They were a little bit too harsh. So this layer just helps smooth things out ever so slightly. It is beneficial for us to have a really nice chipping scheme. But at this stage I felt like it just needed smoothing out slightly. Violet ink is thinned down 1 portion paint to 3 portions thinner. It is very, very thin because ink is very intense. And this is airbrushed into all our shadows. Looks a bit weird right now. It's supposed to. This is our filter layer, Blood Angels Contrast. Pop it in there. So this is mixed with thinner. So this is 2 portions paint to 1 portion thinner. And again, I am using the life color thinner, and this covers the entirety of the miniature. However, I do start at the shadow to upper mid-tone. I work my way gradually up towards the highlight. I start in the shadows and I build my airbrush work up to the highlights. And if you're unsure exactly how saturated you want the color to be, well, stop after 1 layer, allow it to sit, hit it with a hairdryer, cool setting, and then we simply come back to it. I am concentrating on the lower mid-tones to mid-tone to saturate them. I'm leaving the very top highlight alone after 1 coat. And this is where the magic of the hairspray technique comes in. So I'm just demonstrating just how much you can take off on the miniature on the shoulder pads that will eventually end up black. The entire miniature is coated with water. You can see the contrast start to mingle with the underlying colours. It helps smooth things out a little bit and gives us the final impression that we're looking for. I'm taking an old battered brush that I've cut the top off. I'm hoping to score along any hard lines, again, anywhere you'd think to add an edge highlight or would pick up the most amount of battle damage. Any piece of armor that comes into frequent contact with its surrounding environment. Knuckles, knee pad, hard edges of the feet, the shield especially, because that will take some damage. And anywhere that you think would make it look good. But beware, this does have a tendency to not move at all. Until it does, then it strips off very big swathes. So please be patient. Be patient. And you can use a variety of different surfaces. In this case, I'm using the cleaning key that came with my airbrush to help create different scratches, different volumes of scratches, different aggressions of scratches. You can use a knife, you can use old brushes, you can use sponges, whatever does the trick, whatever gives the most convincing, realistic chipping pattern possible should be your guiding light. And it's at this stage you feel like most of the work is done, and it is. The magic of airbrush and realistic chipping. Okay, what we're going to do next is block in color tones. So we'll be blocking in the skin, the purity seal, the metallics, will be the leather, everything will be blocking in. And it's a simple 1 coat process because the oils will add depth to absolutely everything that we apply on top of here. Any black, in this case I use scale 75 black to cover the shoulder pad as well as the chainsword, as well as any rubberized seals of this guy. Heavy metal from scale 75 is used to block in all the metallics, and again it's just 1 coat, nothing more complex than that. copper from Vallejo metal color is used for the what the hell is that called? The bionic arm. And I've added 50-50 copper plus silver for the chest pad. Frustratingly, I'm unable to give an exact color reference for this because I mixed it up in front of you. However, pink flesh from the scale 75 range offers a very, very good equivalency to this. I coat the skin with this. I apply oils later on and highlight with golden flesh. That is it. The hair is covered in golden flesh, and later on I will add a layer of yellow ink, and that's how the hair was created. We won't be covering that in this tutorial. Boreal green and Gobi brown is used to base coat the purity seal, and then we apply gloss varnish over the entire miniature. I'm using polyurethane varnish in this case. And then we come to the decal stage. Warm water is used to remove the backing of the paper. It's applied on top of a gloss surface by applying the microsol first. Once the decal has dried, we apply microset over the top, allow it to fully and utterly dry, and then we go on to the oil stages. If you did want more information on how to apply decals, there is a dedicated video on that subject available via the Patreon. And the same goes for how to use oil paints. I'll be using a variety of techniques from pin washing to staining on the metallics to give a really realistic, grounded look to my Space Marine. And this is the essence of my, I guess, grim dark technique. I like grounding elements with oil paint, complicating them with this. A pin wash of black and cobalt violet is applied into the shadows, and this is mixed together 70% black, 30% violet, and pure black with, well, pure black, a pinch of violet. I'll be lying if I said it was pure black. A pinch of violet is used for the metallics, for the silver, and for the gold. When it comes to the decals, it really shines out. It's this luminescent yellow, right? So we take black, leather it over the top, we allow it to cure slightly, so I just simply left this for a day. I could come back with a piece of paper soaked in thinner and gently remove any excess, and that gives the decal a very easy looking finish. Okay, the next day again I removed any excess oil paint with a Q-tip. If you are a regular patron, you'll know the process by now. From here we can add any further highlighting with the metallics. We can work on the skin tone, work on the base, which we'll look at very briefly, but that is it. That's the color recipe for the Blood Angel, and that's how you create it. As a little bonus, English uniform is used to dry brush the base. Then we use our snow base mixture, which you can find in the Abaddon tutorial. This gives the exact mixture and measurements for the snow base tutorial, and they look rather fetching against that blood red armor. But that is it for this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. It is like I said, an art of compromise. It's a window into a sketch on how to complete this piece. It's not meant to be a full-on masterclass. It's not meant to be this huge video. It's a brief look at how you create this scheme very, very quickly that you can adapt to your own ends. Thank you very much. I hope you're enjoying the Advent Calendar series. I'll catch you in the next vid.